is going to be about the Staebler Insurance OER Fellows Grant. It'll be an information session about that, provided by Lauren Bile and Abby Colucci. And I'll say a bit about each of them. So Lauren Bile is the copyright and licensing librarian here at Waterloo. And she's currently the co-chair of the Open Education Working Group and a former co-chair of the Open Scholarship Committee. And in her spare time, she enjoys exploring the many trails of southwestern Ontario. And Abby is the Open Education and Instructional Design Librarian at Waterloo. And here she writes content and designs online learning materials. She holds a Master's of Library and Information Science from Kent State University and a Master of Education Information Technology from Memorial University of Newfoundland. Her research focuses on information literacy and accessibility in online learning, and she spends most of her days surrounded by 4 furry research assistants who specialize in long naps, and I'll assume those are cats or dogs, not raccoons or possums.
I wish.
Okay, so thank you both. So take it away.
Going to share my screen. Maybe. Is this being shared, my presentation?
Yep, looks good.
Great. Maybe. Okay.
There it is.
Good morning, everyone. As Mark mentioned, I am Abby Colucci, and my co-presenter is Lauren Bile, who's the copyright and licensing librarian here at UWaterloo. Today, we're going to talk about the Staebler Insurance OER Fellows Grant. Maybe. So this is our little table of contents. We're just going to go over, quickly go over, about OER and what this application process is, and your responsibilities if you're given the grant. First, I wanted to do our territorial land acknowledgement. The creators of this slide deck respectively acknowledge that we live, work, and learn on lands of the Haldimand Treaty of 1784, a formally ratified agreement promising the land in perpetuity to the 6 nations of the Grand River, and is within the territory traditionally cared for by the neutral Anishinaabe and something I can't pronounce.
Haudenosaunee.
Thank you, Haudenosaunee people. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that. This acknowledgement is a small step to challenge colonialism, hold ourselves accountable, and honor the enduring presence, achievements, and contributions of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. So about this grant, so we've received, the UWaterloo Library has received a $20,000 per year grant for 5 years. So we're breaking that up by year. So for this year, we will have, we can give up to $5,000 per grant recipient. Today is the day that the applications are open, and you have for the next month to enter your applications. You'll be notified if you are accepted for a grant by the end of April, and you have a whole year to complete the project. So the project completion date is April 30th, 2024. So before we get into the actual grant, what is OER? Basically, OER are educational resources that align with course objectives. And many people don't think about OER like this, but it can include lecture notes that you've created, tutorials. I've seen some faculty are streaming their lessons and put them on YouTube, any software, games, podcasts, things like that. These resources also need to be licensed openly under Creative Commons, which means that they can be accessed by the public and used in any means that or in means that the people would like to, so they can be reused with anything that they need within limitations. And they're available for use by others. So they're publicly hosted, discoverable, and available, and follow the 5 R's of openness. Which are the 5 R's of openness basically come down to retain, revise, remix, reuse, and redistribute. So retain, so if you find an OER a resource, you can own your own copy. You can change it and adapt it to meet your needs. You can combine that work with other resources or other materials that you have, or other OER materials. You can use the original resource and share it within your own, for your own needs, or share it with the open or publicly, and you can redistribute it. So you can revise, you can share your own revised or remixed copy of this resource. Why do we want to support OER? There's many reasons. Number one, it does showcase our Waterloo's academic pursuits. So if we show that our institution are creating OERs, this highlights the intellectual outputs, it promotes our profile, and it attracts students. OERs can enhance the student learning experience. OER materials are often more relevant and engaging to students. They can be collaborative and help students become active participants. They reduce material costs, so materials have risen an incredible amount for students, and that makes it hard to give everyone access to education. So when we're using an OER, it increases access to education, it lowers the costs of materials, and it reduces faculty preparation time. And we also support OER because it recognizes instructors' work. Many instructors are putting in this work, a ton of work creating these things for their students, and they're not recognized for it. And this is one way we can recognize instructors and give instructors control over their content. Some examples of OER. These are just, this is not an extensive list. Just a few examples are you can creating textbooks, adapting an already available textbook or creating your own, adapting your course notes and turning them into open access materials, creating websites with curated content related to your course, audio and video, so podcasts, different interviews, there's public lectures you can highlight, creating animations and artistic performances, extended reality, such as like a virtual reality or virtual field trips, 3D models, simulations, and then there's other interactivities like tutorials, assessments, games, things like that, software, hardware. And I will turn this over to Lauren now.
Thanks, Abby. Yeah, so the last part of this presentation, we'll just sort of quickly go over the grant, what it's all about. First, what I wanted to tell you about is our pilot year. So we have a page called OER Practitioners at Waterloo on our website, which includes all of the recipients of last year's grant, as well as a number of folks across campus who are doing open education work in a number of formats. The previous year's recipients are listed here. So Alana Catapan continued work on her project that had begun before the grant process and used the grant in order to enhance the accessibility of her materials and create new content as introductions. Alana Niederman and Catherine Tong used their grant to hire undergrad research assistants to help them collect stories of older adults and build them into a digital storybook. And Barb Blumhoff used her grant to get doctoral research assistant help to develop the content on the tariffs and how they apply to Canada. All three of these projects really focused on projects that are applicable to the Canadian context. So when we think about OER, sometimes we think about creating localized content, things that just don't exist on the commercial textbook market. And I think that's really, there's three really great examples of that. Next slide, please. So the application process is through the Staebler OER Fellows grant application form, which exists on the website and is linked from the guidelines page that is on our website. There's a bunch of different links, and we'll have one at the end of this presentation. The form is also available in PDF and Word so that you can go through it and fill it out off the website if you wish to do so, and then come back and enter it in. So it does need to be sent in through the web form so that all of them are in the same place, but we recognize that you might want to take some time away to fill it out. They're open today, so the form is available right now if you want to poke around in it, and due April 3rd. And then we'll take the month of April to evaluate the applications and let successful applicants know by April 28th, as Abby mentioned earlier. We'll need a copy of your CV or a link to your departmental profile page if that's the most convenient place for your CV. A detailed budget of what you plan to do with the grant money. And again, that's up to $5,000. A timeline of the task, so just generally a project plan for what you'd like to do. And then we have some recommended expenses here. So hiring research assistants, expert honoraria, user testers, folks, like I said, really concentrated in the last process on hiring those undergraduate or doctoral research assistants. Really, a lot of the things that we find people want to spend the money on is things that help them get their time back. So we know that it takes a lot of time to develop open educational resources, and using expenses in that kind of a way is great. The one thing we can't do, both with the size of the grant and just sort of policy-wise, is pay for course release. But that list is on the grant guidelines page. Also, people are purchasing specific software applications. We had someone use part of the grant to sort of renew their WordPress license. So those kinds of things are also applicable. Get the next slide, please. Oops. Thank you. Yeah, so your responsibilities are around creating the content and making sure that it is accessible and that the copyright is cleared in the content. So there's certainly help with both of those kinds of things. And then you're also wanting to be creating, adapting, or adopting whatever it is your open education project is, but that comes along with those responsibilities to make sure that the content is copyright cleared and accessible for students. We'd also like for folks to participate in open education working group events. So we've had all of our pilot year folks come out to our meetings to keep us all in the loop about what's going on with the projects. And then we want folks to present at Open Education Week 2024 to tell us about their experiences developing open educational resources and to share their work with others. We want to make sure that we're sharing your project and your progress with the university community along the grant creation process. This is really to give people a sense of how open educational resources are developed and to give people a chance to understand what kind of open education work is happening on campus. And then the project needs to be completed by the end of April 2024. You need to apply an open license to the project. So Creative Commons license is what we would recommend. Of some kind. There are obviously a number of different Creative Commons licenses, but we will leave the choice up to you. And if you have questions about which one you might want to apply, you can always ask us. And then you'll need to acknowledge the University of Waterloo Library Staebler Insurance OER Fellows Grant in any publication or distribution of the project. And then there's also a sort of final report back to our group about the impact of the grant and your process, so that we can report back both to the funder and to the institution just about how that grant is being operated. And then, yeah, so we provide support throughout the process. Both Abby and I are available to answer questions about the grant, about the application, and available to successful applicants for assistance. We have a variety of experience, obviously copyright and licensing, and Abby knows lots about open education and instructional design. And the folks at the Center for Extended Learning, particularly the Agile Development Team, are also available, same as they are to anybody on campus, to apply for their Agile development process, which provides 80 hours of support to projects for a number of different things, including open educational resources. And then folks at the Center for Teaching Excellence continue to be available to provide tips on accessibility and inclusive instructional practices. And we've linked to all of these resources on the guide for the grant, which will provide more information about who can help with what and when. And really, that's all we have for today. We want to give some time for folks to ask questions about the grant. We would encourage you to have a look at the grant page, which provides all of the different requirements for the grant, and also to attend Anna Baricello's session tomorrow, How Can the Agile Development Team Support Your OER, which will give you a better sense of how that team makes their help available and what it looks like when you're using their help to develop open education resources.